Genie's upset. The Dolphins over the Bills, which would be shocking considering the Bills' recent dominance. Last 13 meetings, the Bills have won 12 of them and run up the score in the process. Now Tua is back. He hasn't had a tremendous amount of success against the Bills' defense.
I think he's 1-7, right?
Not great.
Yeah.
Must win.
Listen.
For Miami.
Yeah. I almost included the Dolphins +6 as one of my picks because I think they can win the game outright.
Okay.
Problem is this. I think there's two outcomes possible here. A Dolphins outright win or the Bills just smack them.
Exactly.
And I know we look at the first matchup as, oh, throw it out, Tua got hurt. Man, listen, Tua getting hurt was sad and scary.
But it's also over.
That game was, the reason Tua did something he normally doesn't do, which is put himself in jeopardy, scramble, was because they were in such desperation because they couldn't move the ball. If the Dolphins don't win this game, the division race is over. Flatly over. They do win it, all of a sudden they have a split with Buffalo, and you start to try to be like, okay, we've stabilized. Buffalo then has 3 losses. You see if you can claw your way back in. If they lose, Brew, I think they have to have a real hard conversation about should we trade off some of our pieces. And so it's unequivocally a must-win for Miami and unseasonably warm this Sunday in Orchard Park. 58 degrees at kickoff is the projected temperature. That's actually a huge factor for the Dolphins for their annual game in Buffalo.
They still don't feel great in there, though.
They don't love it. They'll be a little chilly, but it's as good as
Charlie. 45 degrees is the mark. But you know what else isn't a good sign for them? They're playing a good team. I mean, I don't have the graphic. I didn't call it up. But what was Tua last year against good teams? 1-6 against playoff teams, teams with winning records, whatever it was. No, this is a must-win for them just by virtue of their record being 2-5, all right? But also, Tua is back. That's great. We all love to see him back. They're 1-2 with Tua. And the one victory, Jacksonville, remember that?
Yeah.
They got lucky that, I mean, they made a play, but Travis Etienne fumbled the ball. They punched it out.
Week 1.
Yeah, at the goal line. So that wasn't a great win. As you guys said,
last week, though, they
Buffalo
felt like they got unlucky. They're up 10 late.
No, it was Arizona came
yeah.
back. They kind of controlled the game most of the way, Miami. But Arizona's not great. They're common.
Yeah.
And so are the Dolphins. The Bills are going to roll them.
Okay.
Trust me.
Okay. So let's talk about this. Yeah, I mean, I think the more likely scenario here is that the Buffalo Bills win this game quite convincingly. I think the only way that doesn't happen is, put it this way, if the Buffalo Bills don't win this game convincingly, that is more of a serious issue for the Buffalo Bills, right? That is then them saying, we are not as good of a team as people think we are, right? Because this should be a game, because I don't think the Miami Dolphins are very good this year. Their whole season has kind of just been in disarray. They didn't get off to a good start. Tua obviously goes down, and again, I talked about that before, and it is very sad and frustrating. And the season just got away from them. Right now, there's no continuity. It's a weird situation for everyone involved. Just the Miami Dolphins season as a whole, not just now looking through at the lens through Tua, but just the way how the season is, whether it was because of concussions or not. It's just this season was kind of just lost pretty early on, quite frankly, and then they didn't prove to really look that good to begin with. But as Nick was saying, though, if they lose, that the Dolphins are going to have to kind of start to trade their pieces away. I don't know if they do that either necessarily, because then that pretty much puts them in a pretty difficult situation moving forward as well. And they do have some major pieces like Tua, like Tyreek Hill, right? Like, you know, they put out some money, so to kind of just start to now kind of like unload and be a bunch of sellers, you know, that's a tough spot to be in, quite frankly. So I don't know if that's necessarily the reality either. But from my viewpoint, I mean, the trying to win the division from the Buffalo Bills at this point is already it's already practically out of reach. Again, if the Buffalo Bills are legitimate contenders, like a lot of people believe, like even Nick believes to a degree, considering where he put them up on his tiers, then the division's over. They won the division, right? I mean, like the rest is just kind of checking off the boxes and dotting your I's and crossing your T's, right? Like it's the division is over. There's no reason for them to not win. Now, if they're not as good as people believe, and the Bills aren't that good, and they are inconsistent and can drop games and this, that, and the third, well, then then they lose this game. That would be another telling sign of that. I don't think that's the case, and that's why I think the Buffalo Bills will indeed win this game. But if the Buffalo Bills lose this game, I'm not going to be like, oh, the Miami Dolphins are a lot better than people realize. I'm going to look at it more through the lens of like, this is more troubling for the Buffalo Bills, right? That's the lens that I'm going to look at this. To me, this game is all about the Buffalo Bills, because we've seen how much the Miami Dolphins struggled. We saw how even the Buffalo Bills lost to, say, the Texans, and now look how that game has aged a little bit, right? And that game hasn't really aged all that well. Now, of course, the Buffalo Bills have improved. They should be better now. They got Amari Cooper and whatnot, and that alone should make a big enough difference. But if the last couple of games for the Bills, especially last game, is less of them just playing bad teams or a fluke, well, then they would continue rolling, right? Because the Miami Dolphins should not be on the level of Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. They just shouldn't, right? They really shouldn't. And if they are, well, then that means the Buffalo Bills are not a Super Bowl contender. It's kind of a little bit similar to what Nick said about the Baltimore Ravens, where he's like, if the Ravens lose to the Broncos, that means that they're not a Super Bowl contender. And I actually disagreed with that. But in terms of the Buffalo Bills right now, based on how their season has unfolded and some of the acquisitions that they've made and you know, how they started the season versus how the middle of the season has gone and how now the last couple of games have gone, I'm looking at this and I'm like, what is causing you concern that the Miami Dolphins should be able to win this game, right? I mean, if they win it outright, I'm trying to think of a scenario. I mean, like, it would have to just be like Tua just in his bag, right? Like, again, showing everyone why he got paid all that money. Tyreek Hill reminding everyone, yo, I'm still the best receiver in the game. Come see me. Let's go, right? Like, it would have to be like a perfect game from the Miami Dolphins. And I guess I kind of talked myself into it. The only way that I would be okay with the Buffalo Bills losing this game and having it not be like this more like what is going on with the Bills is if offensively the Miami Dolphins are balling out and offensively the Buffalo Bills are balling out and they just so happen to lose. But it is not defensible. It is indefensible from my viewpoint to have the Buffalo Bills not just put one on them offensively, right? That to me is not okay. I think it would be okay if everything is firing at all cylinders for the Miami Dolphins and they get going offensively, because they are capable of doing it, right? They have an incredibly smart head coach. Tua can obviously play, so can Tyreek and the rest of the offensive weapons that the Dolphins have. Like, it's definitely possible. And so, like, you know, right, the definition of any given Sunday, but it is indefensible from my viewpoint for the Buffalo Bills offensively to not roar, right? To not put up points, to not truly look like, oh yeah, we got this, like they did in their first game, you know, against each other, right? Like, that's what I'm looking for. Anything less than that, then it's like, why is this offense so inconsistent? Why is it one game they look like the most dominant offense in the NFL, and why is the next game they're not? It looks like they can't even get a first down, right? Why does it look like they're regressing, right? That's kind of what I'm looking for. And again, I'm not predicting that, of course, but I'm just saying, like, that is what this game would signal to me. So it's going to be an interesting game because they obviously give the Dolphins some respect. I know 6 is still a pretty hefty, pretty hefty cover. But in terms of giving points, but we have other games that are like 9.5, 7.5, right? Like we see a lot bigger gaps. So it seems like at the very least there's more respect for the Dolphins than some of these other teams that are actually technically playing better than the Dolphins. And again, that's part of the problem of trying to evaluate this team is Tua hasn't been playing. When Tua wasn't playing, this team just kind of collapsed, right? So that's kind of like potentially the also big question mark of like, are the Dolphins, maybe the Dolphins are actually good and they're not as bad as people think, but I'm not seeing it right now personally. As much as I'm rooting for them because I want to see Tua succeed and, come back from his, from his concussions, and I want to see him healthy, and I want to see them, be productive. And that's just from like the human side of it all, quite frankly, not like I'm not a Miami Dolphins fan or anything like that. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Buffalo Bills? Do you think this game will be within reach for the Miami Dolphins, or do you think the Bills should be able to win this easily? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.